What's up, everybody? It's Ty with Montana Outlaw BBQ coming back at you with one that you've been asking for. It's the final one of our competition series. We're talking competition chicken. So the first thing we need to do when we talk about competition chicken is how do we get the most flavor into every chicken thigh. We cook chicken thighs for competition chicken. They are going to be very juicy naturally because they're a dark meat. They got a lot of fat content, but we want a lot of flavor in there. So we're gonna brine our chicken the night before. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna mix up our chicken soak. We're gonna be using the Cosmos chicken soak. We've got our Nalgene bottle here for easy measuring, and it's a good holder when you're traveling. If you're going to a competition, you can make this stuff up as far as 3 or 4 days in advance. You could do it the day of as long as it has a couple hours to sit and kind of get incorporated with the water. So that's why we always use these type of bottles just for transportation. So I got about 40 ounces of water in this bottle here. For that, when you do the math, we're gonna add about a half a cup of our Cosmos chicken soak. We like this product. It's got good flavor. It's always consistent product, and it always helps us get a really good, juicy chicken. So we're just gonna make it really easy. So we got a half a cup here of the Cosmos chicken soak, and we're just going to get that down in the bottle. It can make a little bit of a mess, but that's all right. We're not looking, it doesn't have to be exactly measured. It doesn't have to be perfect. We like that 40 ounces to a half a cup of the soak. It seems to get the flavor that we want. So we just put it in our Nalgene bottle and we give it a shake. Shake it really good to get everything good and incorporated in. And then set that aside. Like I said before, this could be made 3 or 4 days in advance if you're traveling to a contest like we do from Montana. We got a long ways to go. We try and get as much prep done as we can before we hit the road so we don't have the mess of it while we're out on the road. So these are really great bottles to transport that in. But at least an hour or two before you soak your chicken, if you're doing this at home and you just want that extra flavor in a breast meat or something, give this a good hour or two in the refrigerator to just get good and incorporated. So now that we have this done, we're gonna put it in the refrigerator for a couple hours, but stay with us because we're gonna talk chicken trimming, chicken selection, and everything you need to know to get perfect skin. In this portion of the video, we're gonna talk everything you need to know about chicken itself. Again, we cook chicken thighs for competition. Everybody has a choice. You can cook Cornish game hen, you can cook chicken breast, you can cook chicken thighs, you can cook chicken wings, you could cook chicken legs. You can do whatever you want. It can be bone in, it can be boneless. It is totally at the discretion of the cook as long as you fall into some of those parameters on the general idea of chicken. When we cook at a contest like the Jack Daniels competition, the World Championships, you have to turn in both white and dark meat. In that instance, chicken wings are considered white meat. So we would do a chicken wing or a drumette and we'd still do our chicken thighs. So for us, it's always chicken thigh. And if you're ever wondering how a competition like the Jack works for us, make sure you go over to our Facebook page, check it out. We did go live there through the entire process, so you could come along with us during the entire turn-in process and you can see what we actually do there. So let's talk about chicken. What do we look for in chicken? The first thing that we want to is when we go and we pick up our chicken, we're gonna go to a local grocer. We're gonna go to some place where we know has quality chicken. Could be Tyson chicken, could be an air-chilled chicken, could be a smart chicken, depending on what's available locally. We don't wanna get it a long time in advance if we're traveling across the country because we don't wanna open it up, trim it, and try and repackage it. You could get a bad flavor in there, and we just want to avoid that. So we always do chicken on site when possible. We look for 4 packets or chicken packages that contain 4 thighs. In those packages, we want 2 pounds per package. That's gonna give us a good consistent chicken thigh as far as size that we need for turn-in. We also want to look at the color of the skin. We're looking for something that has, good white fat on it, good white skin on it. That's gonna tell me that it's not overly corn-fed, it's not just sitting there and getting fattened. It's gonna render out, it's gonna help with that bite-through skin that we look for in competition. We don't want a chicken skin that's really thick and chewy, so we're gonna want that. And again, we just want overall size. Because we do trim these down quite a bit, we want ones that have good size to them. So we can get 8 per small pan, we do half pans. We get 8 per half pan, we want consistent size in there. So let's go ahead and get trimming. First thing we're gonna do with our chicken thighs is we're gonna take the skin completely off. We're gonna completely remove it and just set it to the side. It's gonna be a lot easier to do this as long as you maintain them really cold. They get warm, the skin becomes harder to trim up. So the first thing we're gonna do, we're gonna come to this side and we're gonna trim off and just square up our chicken thigh. And we're gonna come to the top on this side, on the side that has the bigger, kind of the bald part of the joint, and we're gonna trim it off, square it off there. And then on this side, because this is a smaller thigh, I'm not gonna do it, but you can see this fat line right here comes up and it makes a T. Right underneath it, or I guess for today's instance, I'll go ahead and do it. In competition, if I was trimming up this thigh, because it's not the biggest one, I wouldn't do this, but right where that T is, on that fat line, if you go down through it, you can run your knife in there and you can feel it'll grab a groove. And we're just gonna take a thicker boning style knife or a thicker knife like this and go right down through it like that and get rid of that knuckle there. Then we're gonna flip it back over. We're gonna peel off that fat because we don't want necessarily any excess fat. Like I say, that's kind of a smaller chicken thigh than what I would really want for competition, but that happens when you're buying those 4-packs, multi-packs of those. So now with the skin, we're gonna lay it out and we just wanna square this off. So you got a really fatty side on this side. We're gonna take and pull that off. Make sure you cut all the way through. And on this upper side, we're gonna go to about where we think we can get a good square piece. But we also wanna make sure we're leaving enough skin on there that we can wrap it all the way around this thigh. So then we're just gonna roll it back over, make sure that we leave ourselves enough skin to tuck it on the edges, and then we wanna make sure we have enough skin to tuck it up underneath. That's gonna help us make sure that when the judge takes a bite, and through the cooking process, it's not gonna shrink so much, but when the judge takes a bite, it's gonna hold on there on the back side so it doesn't all come falling off. Once we have that done, we're gonna take our jacquard, which is like a meat tenderizer, and we're gonna just jacquard the crap out of it. Think of it like perforations on your checkbook. So now that we've done that, when that judge goes to take that bite or anybody goes to take that bite, it's gonna pull away. It's just gonna be easier. So we're not necessarily looking to tenderize the meat, but we're more looking to just give that skin an extra break point in there. And so you can do it, no rhyme or reason, do it a handful of times. So, and don't worry about these holes that you see on here. There's enough fat in this skin through that cooking process, and when we flip it over in the butter, you're gonna see it, these holes will kind of go away. They'll close back up on it. We do that because it's so important that when that judge or when somebody takes a bite of this chicken thigh, that the skin doesn't all pull off. We want them to leave a nice tooth mark in there. Let's go ahead and do another one here, and we'll just repeat the process one more time and go over anything that we might have missed. So we'll begin by pulling the skin off, set the skin to the side. This is more of the size chicken thigh I'd like to see. We got the long flap side over here, so we'll come in. And really, I guess I gauge this. I should touch on this. I didn't on the first time. We've got about an inch worth of meat, 3/4, give or take, on this side. So I want about the same over here. We want a good square. So I'm gonna come off, and that's what I'm using as my guide. It's not just a random selection. Go to the top, take off that top part, set it aside, grab our heavier duty knife. You'll see that T is pretty clearly defined right here. That T comes up, that fat line comes across. It's very easy to find that way, and when you go down through there, you can find it. Your knife will slide right into that groove that's in there. Makes it really easy just to get right down through. Takes that off, gives me a nice square one. Flip it over, that little bit of fat right there, trim that off. And then we set it aside, pull out our skin. Square up our skin. You see this skin's really good skin, not a lot of excess fat on it. So I'm just gonna more look for that squareness of it. Again, leaving myself enough to overlap. Don't worry about it going on is the exact same way that it came off. And if you're doing a lot of these, like when I'm doing these for competition, I'll pull 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 off and set them to the side. I don't even care if the skin goes back onto the same chicken thigh that it came off of. It's just I want to make sure that we get the chicken thighs that are the same size. As a matter of fact, I've had to get at different times, maybe have to run to the store and grab a chicken breast, a bone-in skin-on chicken breast that has that bigger piece of skin on it because I just need that extra skin. That's not important where it comes from. Again, we'll take our jacquard tool and we'll just kind of randomly, however you guys want to do it, but don't be too worried about doing it too much. Just like that. And again, we have those, you'll start to see those marks in there, those grooves, those perforations. That's gonna help, but it'll all kind of grow back in or cover back up as we go through that cooking process. That's all there is to my method of trimming chicken. I'm gonna go ahead and do a few more. We'll get our pan of 8 going, and I'm gonna show you the next step of this process is gonna be to get that chicken soak out of the fridge, and we're gonna soak these chicken thighs for a couple hours. Okay, so I've got all this chicken trimmed up, it's ready to go. It's just worth noting, when I do competition, I cook 16 chicken thighs to turn in 6. I just like to have a good variety, I like to have a good selection, I like to make sure that I get really good ones that I can turn in. So that's why you see 9 in here today, but that's where we're at. Our soak's been in the refrigerator for a couple hours, we got this all trimmed up, ready to go. So we're ready to go ahead and pour it in. There's not much to it. We'll take our brine, put it in a half pan. We want to fill it up to where it covers it nice and level so that we get a good soak in there. So we want them completely submerged. Get all the good juicy bits in there. All right, so now this process for us in competition is taking place on Friday night. We're gonna do this the night before. Soak our chicken for 2 hours. It's a no rinse chicken soak for us, so for after 2 hours, we'll come back, we'll strain these off. They'll go back in the refrigerator where they'll sit overnight unseasoned, just out of the brine, sit in a tinfoil roaster pan in the refrigerator, and then we come back the next morning, the following morning, and we go ahead and season them. So right now, we're gonna go ahead and go through that process. I'm gonna put them in the refrigerator for 2 hours, and then we'll come back and we'll get them seasoned up and ready to go in the grill. So the last thing you guys saw us do is we put this chicken into a brine. Let me go over that again, that process. So that goes into the brine the night before for 2 hours. It sits in the brine for 2 hours, after which we take it back out of the refrigerator. We just strain off the brine, put it into a bucket, put it down the sink, however you get rid of it, get rid of the brine. We then don't rinse our chicken, we don't do anything with it. Right in that same tin that it was brined in, we just put it back into the refrigerator with a piece of tin foil over the top. It sits in there overnight. So at a competition, that would be from like 8 p.m. until 7 or 8 a.m. So we're talking 11, 12 hours that it's gonna sit in the refrigerator before we go ahead and season it. We've already done this process. We didn't need to have a snooze fest for a video, so you didn't need to see us do that. So here we are, 12 hours later, our chicken's brined, it's rested, it's ready to season. So let's jump into that. So for us, when we cook competition chicken, we make sure we hit savory and sweet notes. So we start with a nice base layer of Cimarron Docks. It's one we use on our ribs, we use on other products. It's just really good combination of sweet and savory. We move from there, our second rub is gonna be our chicken rub. We like this rub because it's nice, it's savory with the salty notes in it. It's got some sweet components, but it's also got just a little hint of heat in there from the crushed red pepper that we add into it. We finish it off with a very light coating of the Cosmos Killer Bee, It's got the honey component to it. It also adds a nice little light color to it. So you add all these up, you get savory, you get sweet, a touch of heat, and a really nice red color. So we talked about our seasonings, how are we gonna apply them? Let's go ahead and get that done. But the first thing we need to do is we need to pull one of these chicken thighs out. I only cook pans of 8. I've got 9 sitting on my board. I don't need to waste the seasoning on one that I'm not gonna cook. So as I look for them, I'm looking for uniform size, I'm looking for uniform shape. And so the one that jumps out to me right away is gonna be this guy right here. He's just kind of oblong, he's not good shaped. I'm just not really a big fan of him. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull him out, set him to the side. Nothing wrong with him outside. I just don't think he's gonna cook to a shape that I want, a size that I want, finished product that's gonna allow me to have a product to put in the box, make a pretty presentation. So as we move on from there, we're gonna season these, but I'm gonna flip them all over. We're gonna season the back side of these thighs first, because then when you go to put them in the pan, you got your seasoning on the back, you can always touch up the top. So we're gonna flip them over. We're not gonna move the skin. We're not gonna do anything like that. We're gonna start with our Cimarron docks. So we're gonna apply a nice medium coat of our Cimarron docks. This isn't very thick, so it's gonna come out fast. So you gotta be very careful when you apply that because you could over season it very easily. From there, we'll move on to our Montana Outlaw chicken rub. This is a little thicker, a little coarser. So as we use this rub, you'll see the turbinado sugars, the coarse ground salt is a lot thicker on here, so a nice medium coat. You can start to see the way it's interacting, that color change. We're looking for that nice dark red color. So we're gonna finish our chicken off on the backside with a nice light coating of the Cosmos Killer Bee. Again, this is a really fine one, so be careful because you can overdo it, and we're looking for nice and light. We use this one again because it's got that honey in it, it's a nice sweetness, and it just adds a nice layer of flavor. All right, so now that we've got those done, we flip them over and we restart the process. We go with the same rubs on top as we do on the bottom, making sure that we pay particular attention to the back side, the same as we would the front or the top skin side. So from there, now that we've got them all seasoned, we need to get them into our pan and we need to slice up some butter and put some butter in there. So that's our next step, is I'm gonna get these out of here, I'm gonna get them into a pan, and we'll show you how we apply the butter to our pan. So now we've got our seasoning applied, front and back, we're ready to go. I cook, again, like I said, I cook 8 chicken thighs, and I wanna make sure that we start to set that presentation. So we wanna make sure that we tuck the skin underneath like that as we start to place these into our pan. And I'm just gonna put them in the pan. We want them off the edge, all the way around, enough that we can stick our sticks of butter down in there. And then we don't worry too much about whether or not they're touching as we go up, but we go too wide, just like that. They're gonna touch a little bit. That'll help them hold that form together so they don't flatten out throughout the cook. We wanna make sure that they look nice and plump, like that. And just tuck that skin in underneath. You can see the difference that makes in the overall appearance. And you can see how those are all nice looking. Really happy with how these are after the brine. And I'm confident that out of these 8, because I cooked 16 at a contest, I'm only really looking at a minimum. I need to get 3 out of this pan, 3 out of my other pan. I'm pretty darn confident that I can get that out of this pan just based on what I'm seeing here. Okay, now I've got them in there. You can see we have our sides and our edges ready to put the butter in. For me, we always use Challenge butter, salted. It adds that savory component. Salt's just that good natural enhancer. So I take every stick of butter, I cut it into 6 close to even pieces. We're gonna put 1 behind each chicken thigh like that. And we're gonna put 1 on each edge. And we'll go up again, like that. I'm not superstitious about anything until I am. And just like that. So now what we're gonna do is this chicken, we want it to rest and sweat a little bit. So 45 minutes to an hour ahead of when I'm gonna put this in for my competition cook. Competition cook is 2 hours. We're gonna go ahead and let it soak inside the bath, the butter bath. At 45 minutes, we're gonna flip this chicken over, so then it'll go skin side down into the butter. It'll stay there for 15 minutes, and we'll flip it back over. We just wanna help make sure that we get some fat components onto that chicken skin itself. It helps that rendering process through the last hour of that cook. We're gonna cook this, depending on the day, depending on where I'm at, I'm gonna be somewhere between 300 and 315 degrees for a 2-hour cook on this chicken. But right now, I'm gonna put it back in the refrigerator, 45 minutes to an hour. It'll start to sweat like all our other meats are. It'll go right from there, right onto the grill. I wanna recap a little bit before we move on to the next step of the process. We'll recap the seasoning. So we seasoned these up. We got our butter in there. That's what we saw last in the video. They went into the fridge for an hour. Brought them out of the fridge, right onto the pit. They stayed on the pit that was running at about 300 degrees for 45 minutes, just straight away in the pan. We don't touch them, we don't look at them. 45 minutes, we go ahead and flip those over so the skin is down inside the butter bath. After that, 15 minutes down, we go ahead and flip them back over. This is a super simple cook process. We flip them back over. They go anywhere from another 45 minutes to an hour. We're looking at a temperature, finished temperature of around 190 degrees on these today. And we're gonna spritz those throughout that last 45 minutes on an as needed basis, just with water. Up here in the mountain air, it's a little dry, so we don't have as much humidity. So we just wanna make sure that skin stays nice and moist and juicy. If you're in a more humid area, you may not have to spritz at all as we work that. So after that, we pull them off the pit, bring them in here. We got our sauce going. In our sauce today, we have 4 cups of Blues Hog Original. We've got a 1/4 cup of honey, and we've got a 1/2 cup of apple juice. You can increase that, decrease that, however much you want to do to get it. But I like to put it in a pan about like this, so when I go and I dunk it, it's just sauced right in. It's nice and easy. I pick it up with my hands. Don't use a lot of utensils here. But overall, just a super, super simple cook process that we have on our chicken today. So without further ado, let's go ahead and sauce some of these. So we just take it like that, into the sauce and out, and you're left with that. And we'll just put them right over here. Hot, right off the grill. I would always suggest hot gloves if you can. I wasn't smart enough to put any on. So once we get these sauce, we're gonna return them to the grill for about 10 minutes. Just enough to set that glaze and make them pretty. Make them really nice and shiny. And reserve your sauce for touch up as needed. We don't want a real thick, heavy sauce. I like a sauce that sets on there. I don't want it to necessarily be sticky and coat the mouth of the judges. I just want to have it on there for a nice little taste. Okay, so now that we have that done, that's really all there is. Super simple process to saucing our chicken. There's our chicken sauced up, ready to go. Back onto the grill, still 300 degrees, back onto the pit for another 10 minutes. We'll come back, we'll talk about it, we'll show you how we would line it up in the box. We'll try some, let you know what our thoughts are on the cook today, and then give an opportunity for anybody to answer or ask some questions or comments down below. We'll make sure we get back to you with any questions on today's cook. So we're about to wrap up our video here today on competition chicken. We've had it on the grill, back on the pit, I call it a grill, back on our pit for 10 minutes, setting the glaze on these. You can see it's not runny, it's got a nice texture to it, it looks good and tacky. And so now let's just talk briefly about when I go to plate these. In a competition, I would have 2 pans of these, so I would be looking for 3 out of here, 3 out of the other pan at a minimum. But when we go to build our box for a competition, I'm gonna try and put what I would consider the knuckle side, like this side here, inside so that they can kind of hide one another as we go. So I'm gonna go through and I'm gonna try and find my best 6 thighs. as we work down through there. And I mean, those are 3 really good ones right there. And that one, really nice one. And I've got a couple of smaller ones that probably in a competition I wouldn't utilize. We're gonna go ahead and do that. So in a box, I'm gonna keep it really super simple. I'm gonna go 3 by 3 right down the middle. This recipe is so simple, it's so easy, but to me, competition chicken is one of the hardest ones to cook because it is so labor intensive from start to finish. From the trimming is more intense, there's more to it, the seasoning, everything, there's just so many more components to something that only cooks for 2 hours, and something that's so small, you would think it would be the easiest, and I think it's the hardest to get right. And if you're interested, and in case you missed it, you want to see what competition barbecue is really like when we go to do turn-ins, check out our live stream that we did at the Jack Daniel's World Invitational in October. It's a really good watch. It is a couple hours long, but you can learn a lot and see exactly what it's like to be in our trailer on competition day. As you can see in this clip, this is what a final turn-in box would look like. This is gonna be my hopeful plug that's only gonna matter here for a short time, but if you wanna taste this, if you wanna see how we do it in person, if you wanna be able to ask questions, please sign up for our barbecue class. We have our first competition class coming up the end of March. We will hopefully be doing more of those in the future, but come check it out. Come meet with us, come talk with us. We wanna show you all the tips and tricks we've learned in competition barbecue. This is the last of our competition series. Unless we hear from you and you want to see a different way, a different method, let us know. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, not only to our channel, but to this video, following us along on this journey. I hope you learned something today. I hope you have some takeaways today. And until next time, make sure you hit the bell, hit the subscribe button, check out all our socials, and we will join you next time right here on Montana Outlaw BBQ channel.